A lot of people have been telling me to take a look at this video, and I heard that parts of it are somewhat stinky, especially when it comes to a certain game that's being referred over here. But I'm here to encounter it with a bit of an open mind, so let's see what it's all about, because we're going to be rating gacha games free-to-play friendliness from worst to best. Popular gacha games. So why don't we go ahead, take a look at this one, and see what it's all about.
Hi, welcome back. We all know gacha games are predatory, and everybody who plays them has an insanely toxic love-hate relationship with them.
True.
People usually play games to de-stress and as entertainment, but most gacha games bring stress to everybody involved, mostly psychological to F2P players and very financial to those who spend money. I've said this before and I will say it again. When you play gacha games, the only 100% rate is that you will get shafted, but some games do that less than others, so which games are the most F2P player friendly? From having a lot of rewards to a forgiving gacha system, today we're going to look through a bunch of games and rank them from worst to best in terms of F2P player friendliness.
Let's do it. I'm excited to see what some of his criteria are regarding what makes a game free-to-play friendlier than others. I wonder if Endgame's going to be a part of that discussion.
But before we get started, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Express Train Discord server for a fun and lovely community to hang out with. Also, thank you very much for 7,000 subscribers. I really appreciate every single one of you. So I am planning on doing a giveaway when we reach the big 10,000, so make sure to subscribe. Now let's get on to it.
Alrighty.
Well, we always gotta start these lists off with the rules. I'm going to take the most memorable and popular gacha games, but I'm not going to take too many because I'm just one guy and I haven't played every single gacha game.
Maybe you should consult Touhou Sniper, the god of gacha, or Ryuku Sensei, the teacher from Japan, because they can't stop talking about the fact that they play like 1,700 gacha games on a daily basis. So maybe you could get like their point of view and they can help you craft your next video because they play every single one.
I'm going to take into consideration a few attributes. Endgame accessibility, which is what kind of investments F2P players need to
Very nice.
reasonably beat the endgame content in the game, either PvP or PvE. This will include talking about power creep and HP inflation, so HSR players, get ready.
And ZZZ players, I hope you're ready too.
Developer generosity, which is the free or collectible rewards the game gives out. Collectible meaning you have to do something for them, like exploration or farming events. Player maintenance, which is the amount of daily time investment the players need to stay on top of the content in the game without falling into any FOMO tactics like very limited events or banners. And probably most importantly, the quality of the gacha system. The rates, the pity systems, and all that cool gambling stuff. So,
I'm gonna be honest, that list of criteria sounds pretty solid to me. I don't actually think that there's anything particularly missing from the list that I just saw over there.
let's start. The list will be in order from worst to best, and the first game we'll be looking at is Dragon Ball Legends. Well, just like every other video about any other gacha topic I've ever made, Dragon Ball Legends is at the very bottom. Well, to make a long story short, Dragon Ball Legends is a PvP gacha game that has tons of power creep. But to be fair, the devs did address it. Still not fixed, but at least it's a house somewhere. With a gacha system that has no pity where it actually matters in Ultra and LF banners, a 0.35% chance for Ultra units, and a 0.25% chance for LF units. So, let's take it from the very top. Like we said, it's a PvP gacha game with tons of power creep. Character copies in this game are also pretty powerful, unlocking some of the true potential of many units. Well, with a literally, non-figuratively, non-existent pity system, and a very low chance for higher rarity units, it's unforgiving for both whales and F2P players alike, but it does not remove the advantage of whales when it comes to character copies, because they still have more pulls than you. Endgame accessibility for F2P players is garbage, but to be fair, a lot of skill is involved. A skilled enough F2P player will be able to beat even the whalest of whales, but if we're being realistic for a moment, for the average F2P player, it's very inaccessible and those whales will dogwalk you. When it comes to generosity, there are actually quite a few F2P pulls to be collected. When you log in every day for a while, you can get quite a lot of CC, which is the in-game currency, which should help you with how terrible the gacha system is. However, a lot of this CC is pretty hard to get. Just because it's there doesn't mean you can get all of it. All in all, Dragon Ball Legends is pretty goddamn predatory, simply because of their gacha system and endgame accessibility.
Okay, so it's kind of like getting the CC from getting max stars is hard because you need crazy whaled characters and live investment to even get like the extra resources from full clearing a stage. Okay, I see. So it's like there's more free available, but to get the free stuff, you would need to whale in the first place to even reach the power levels required.
But at least for F2P players, they do give the opportunity to get quite a lot of pulls. Although
You need 14 copies to get the max stars. That's like Stygian Onslaught for every single stage, huh?
like we said, it's pretty hard to get, so it fails quite spectacularly in the player maintenance department. So I would give Dragon Ball Legends 2 ratings actually, one for strictly PvE players and another for those who play PvP as well. I'll give it 2 out of 10 on the F2P friendliness scale for everyone who wants to enjoy PvP content. The biggest problems is the lack of accessible CC and the tons of whales that will make your life a living hell. I'll give it a 4 out of 10 for those who want to strictly play PvE. It's just
both ratings seem kind of bad.
That gacha system that's holding it back terribly. All in all, I really wouldn't touch Dragon Ball Legends unless I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. I mean, even then, you should play Dokkan Battle instead. The next game on the list is going to be Genshin Impact. You're probably not surprised
Makes
seeing
sense.
it this low. Genshin's gacha system isn't the worst thing in existence. It's got a 0.6 chance for a 5-star unit with 90 heart pity and a 50-50 mechanic, or 80 pity and a dual weapon 50-50 mechanic for their weapon banner. It's definitely one of the worst of the modern age gacha games, but it's not really the worst of all time. I can name many games that have a worse gacha system than it, including one that is actually higher up on the list. However, where Genshin truly fails is in its latest years. It seems they really revved up the stupidity and greediness, because not only did they break their own rules and put 2 new banners that are best in slot to each other in the same time slot, but they also ramped up their power creep and HP inflation to a ridiculous degree.
The amount of progress that Genshin has made on the power creep and HP inflation front in the past, like, 6 to 7, 8 months is absolutely insane. I have never seen such a high amount of, like, character-locked bosses, insane mechanics only featuring the newest on-banner units, and some of the most worthless reruns in, like, the history of the game. It's actually nuts how bad the older units are in this game and how much the power level has risen across the board during Natlan's release. It's nuts what's going on.
Seems Hoyo's teams are taking lessons from each other, unfortunately. Older characters are now much weaker, and while Genshin is slightly skill-based, allowing some players to still be able to beat the content if they try hard enough, for most players, the changes in the endgame content got pretty bad. Also, it wouldn't be a Moose on Caffeine video without mentioning how much a piece of dog shit Genshin Impact and its endgame content is. So anyway, it has an okay gacha system, endgame accessibility that is becoming worse and worse, but what about player maintenance and generosity? Well,
Oh, you gotta work for those polls, bucko.
when it comes to generosity, Genshin Impact is pretty f***ing infamous for really cucking its player base at every opportunity. The average patch gives out somewhere around 50 to 60 intertwined fates, which means you can only guarantee a 5-star unit once every 3 average patches. Special patches don't give much more at around 80 per special patch. When it comes to player maintenance, it's actually pretty damn simple to maintain the upkeep of your account when it comes to daily quests and artifact farming. However, to collect all the primo devs that are actually available through exploration, it's pretty goddamn time consuming. You may as well spend a whole week on just one region. Story quests also take quite a bunch of time that could have been useful to spend elsewhere, like on another game. I'd give Genshin Impact a 5 out of 10 on the F2P friendliness scale. A lot of people in this game are actually casual players, so the only thing they truly care about is getting a new unit every once in a while, and that's perfectly fine. But for anybody looking for anything more than that, please don't play Genshin Impact.
Genshin Impact is, ironically enough, kind of only good for newer players nowadays. Because you can ensure you can just pull out all the newest banners, all the newest units, have all the pulls you need just to get the strongest ones possible, and you will dog walk all the endgame content. Because they've intentionally designed it to literally be the worst time available if you're a returning player or a veteran one that simply just has not pulled on the newest units. It's nuts. It's going down the exact same route as HSR.
The next game on the list is Fate Grand Order. Some of you who watched my video about rating gacha rates may have expected it lower than Genshin, but actually, its gacha system and dev generosity are basically the only bad things about this game. The gacha system is as follows.
We're shilling FGO in the big 2025.
A 0.8% chance for a limited 5-star servant with a whole ass 330 pity. Now that's like twice as bad as Genshin to guarantee your favorite 5-star, but it's gonna get worse. The devs in this game barely give out any currency to F2P players. This game gives out so little currency that you're only guaranteed around 2.5 SSR units every single year.
So you play every day and you can guarantee 2.5 of them a year?
In Genshin, you're guaranteed around 4 or 5 or 6 per year. Now, mathematical averages say you'll get a 5-star in FGO every 100 pulls, but let us stick to guarantees here. So, why is this game in front of Genshin at all? At first, it seems like it should be all the way down with DBL. Well, player maintenance and endgame accessibility in this game are great. There's little to no power creep, and you can beat the whole game with even 1 and 2-star units. You obviously will have a few 5-star units, so it's even easier for everybody. Units are very similar to each other in power, so the only reason one would want to pull any unit is for collection purposes or to min-max a team for their favorite units. For collectors, this game is absolutely garbage. The gacha rates are awful and you get no currency. For people who just want to play the content the game has, like the endgame and the story, this game is pretty much perfect. So, it still has garbage rates and rewards, but it's good on everything else.
Okay, I can see the perspective over here. You could literally go on an almost no-pull account in this game, only get like the free units and stuff when they pop up, and you would be able to complete everything with no real issues, including the endgame. So it's almost like cosmetics, in a sense. That's where like the gacha's coming in, because you can still do everything. You never feel the need to pull a unit for the content.
I'll give FGO a 5.5 out of 10. The next game on the list is Honkai Star Rail. Now, I was going to put this game right next to Genshin Impact, but after consideration, FGO is worse for F2P players, since Honkai Star Rail does give out a few freebies here and there that are very worth it, like Doctor Ratio back when he was actually useful, the free Ron May and Blade, and the free Archer, which is one of the best units in the game currently, but
Okay,
Unfortunately, they did completely ruin the fake collapse story. You also get quite a few pulls every patch, with the average for normal patches being 100 to 120. With a gacha system similar to Genshin, you can guarantee a 5-star round once every 1.5 patches. The weapon banner is a lot better though, only having one weapon on each banner and 75-25 instead of a full-on 50-50.
Then you're gonna have to talk about the power creep and the HP inflation situation, buddy, because I do believe that Honkai Star Rail is 1,000,000% the pioneer when it comes to the Hoyoverse games. It's the game that fucked up its endgame the fastest, and it's also the game that all of Hoyoverse's other titles are modeling themselves after now when it comes to the endgame. And I think the most unfortunate part about this matter is, gosh, just how many people still kept pulling on these fucking banners when every single new unit that was coming out was so much more ridiculously powerful than the previous one. It started with Acheron, and then Hoyoverse just has not slowed down ever since. 2.1 and Acheron's release is what killed this fucking game.
As well as a 0.8% chance for a 5-star instead of a 0.6 chance. Player maintenance in Honkai Star Rail is pretty simple, just log in daily and press the fun button. Events are also usually pretty simple to do, even if they have become a little boring. One thing to criticize about Honkai Star Rail in this regard is that relic farming truly sucks in this game, more so than any other game with similar RNG gear mechanics, because you truly have to invest in a character to max out their build. And maxed out builds are basically the standards asked from you in the endgame content to clear in a reasonable amount of time. That may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's definitely something to be wary of. F2P players may want to split their resources, and in a game like HSR, it's definitely a lot harder to do. So, while Honkai Star Rail passes in all of these categories, the endgame accessibility category is where it fails horribly. Like you probably know, power creep is the biggest monetization model for this game, with units quickly becoming much less powerful as they once were when they came out in just a couple patches.
Hey, but they buffed like 4 of them.
Herda is already T0.5 and Acheron is already T1. Even if they have buffed a few units, it's still nowhere near enough. Characters in Honkai Star Rail also need incredibly high invested teams to function properly. Some characters, even some of the new buffed ones like Blade, require multiple 5-star characters to work.
I'm of the opinion that Honkai Star Rail only buffed its older units so that they could use them to sell the newer ones. That's pretty much it. They buffed Blade after the release of Hyacinth and Tribi, and they also buffed Jingliu for the same exact reason, so that you would feel heavily pressured to pull these two characters, because they are now their new best in slots. And you had previous best in slots for your Blades and your Jinglius before, but that is no longer the case. They don't use them anymore. And the thing is, it's just like, it's always a matter of, you can't have anything nice in this game unless you're willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money. You literally have to pay hundreds of dollars to make these characters not feel like shit, or to give them like their actual synergies. Blade himself doesn't even work properly in his Hyacinth teams unless you pull Hyacinth's Light Cone too. Because Hyacinth's Light Cone has an effect that drains 1% of the party's HP. And when Blade gets his HP drained, he does his follow-up attacks faster. Literally, her fucking Light Cone is necessary for him to be at top performance. Oh, brother.
Other characters like Mighty and Clay also have a bulk of their strength in constellations and light codes. It's a classic case of a greedy endgaming character kit system, which is the only reason HSR is not at the top in terms of F2P friendliness. Investments aren't stable and have a pretty high barrier of entry. 4-star units are also non-existent in the recent updates. So with all of that in mind, I'll give Honkai Star Rail a 6 out of 10 in terms of F2P player friendliness. It's not the best and not the worst, but I have seen a pretty decent 50-50 split of people either complaining about the game being super hard as an F2P player, and others saying that even as an F2P player, they are clearing all the content. On paper,
I think they're lying.
though, Honkai Star Rail is pretty F2P unfriendly because of all the power creep. Wuthering Waves is up next. A lot of people would consider it pretty F2P friendly, but I have a few reasons on why it's not higher on the list.
We're going from worst to best over here, and Wuthering Waves is showing up on the bottom half of the list, because, you know, we're only at the 10-minute mark of a 21-minute video. So let's pay close attention here and see what we got, ladies and gentlemen.
Its gacha system is pretty good, with a 0.8% chance for 5 stars, 80 pity for characters with a 50-50, and 80 pity for weapons while having a 100% guarantee to get the weapon you want.
Yep.
I personally see no flaws in the gacha system here, since I do actually think that 50-50s have a role in getting important standard banner units in gacha games if the game does not supply enough standard pulls, but whether or not you actually want standard banner units in Wuthering Waves itself is a different topic.
Okay, so we got the best gacha out of the bunch.
Answer is you probably don't, and especially because you can't choose the character you lose to, but that has more to do with the state of the game rather than the gacha system. Speaking of which, the state of Wuthering Waves is pretty good. While there was a power creep controversy concerning Zania a while ago, and while it could become a concern in the future, right now it's not that bad. However, characters are increasingly becoming more and more reliant on each other, which is another issue, like Zani with Phoebe and Furlova with Cantorella and Rocha. Furlova even heavily benefits from her weapon, getting more than a 40% increase of damage from it. It's definitely pretty predatory and F2P unfriendly.
So we're using Furlova's weapon as one of the big downsides. However, you always have to view it from the angle of, does the end game require you to have the signature weapons to clear? And if the answer is not even close to a signature weapon to be able to full clear it, then what's the real major crazy issue?
Although, the game is still definitely way more skill-based rather than relic luck or gacha-based like a game like Honkai Star Rail is, so beating the content relies a whole lot on you, and dungeon mains certainly constantly prove that. This also ties into the player maintenance we talked about earlier in HSR. In Wuthering Waves, it's also very simple to farm your daily quests and events, but since it's an exploration game, that can take up some of your time. Echo farming can also take a while, but splitting your resources in this game is much easier to do, since high echo investment matters much less than how you play. In this example on screen right now, shout out to Mix in the Express Run Discord server for the footage by the way, a high investment brand was able to beat this boss in 1 minute and 10 seconds, and a low investment brand was, almost, able to beat this boss in around 1 minute and 30 seconds, so again, it relies a whole lot on you more than your echo luck, so it's a much better situation than HSR or Genshin, but not as good of a situation as the games further up on the list.
So you're full clearing the content with low invested characters, but it's not good.
When it comes to dev generosity, Wuthering Waves excels here, giving out a few freebies, but also definitely missing that free 5-star during the anniversary. You can get around 100 to 130 pulls per patch, but the reduced pity and increased 5-star chance means that it's a slightly lower requirement than Hoyo games, but only by 10 pulls, so at 160 pulls to truly guarantee a 5-star, 1.25 patches should be enough. Again, let's stick to guarantees here, although one thing to note is that realistically, Hoyo has soft pity systems, while Wuthering Waves players still haven't noticed one yet.
Wait, is this guy retarded? Did he just say Wuthering Waves has no soft pity system? It starts at 65 for both the character and the weapon. Everyone gets their weapon and their character at like 66, 67, 68 pulls. He said not noticed? Brother, the game launched 1 year and 2 months ago.
And even though we are sticking to guarantees, that is definitely something to note, so...
There is a soft pity system that's like been established. It was established within like the first month of the game.
In the end, I'll give Wuthering Waves a 7 out of 10 on the F2P friendliness scale.
Wait, so the reasoning that we got was the game lets you clear the end game content with absolutely bum-ass echoes. We talked about signature weapons being better than others as a down point, but then talked in the same sentence about how we can clear all the content with poor investment. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what it's doing here. Let's just see here. I think that Wuthering Waves is for sure. Obviously, we got a bias, right? I think it is the most free-to-play friendly game. Or one of the most, if not the highest. And so I'm excited to see what other games are higher and why.
Next up, we've got Zenless Zone Zero to complete the trifecta of Hoyo games. Honkai Impact 3 and Tears of...
I'm excited to hear about how a game with a 75-25 and the most power creep I've ever seen in a game is more free-to-play friendly. Also, with incredible amounts of HP inflation in the endgame, plus new classes and new units that interact with the newest boss mechanics, so now the bosses are character checks too. I'm excited to see how this game is more free-to-play friendly.
Zenless Zone Zero is incredibly similar to Honkai Star Rail in many ways. The gacha system is basically an exact copy, with one key difference being that 5-star weapons have a 1% chance of dropping instead of 0.8% like in Honkai Star Rail. Other than that, they're basically the exact same. Developer generosity is a tiny bit less in Zenless Zone Zero, since they are yet to give as many freebies as Honkai Star Rail has, but that is mostly probably because Zenless Zone Zero is just younger. You should note that Zenless Zone Zero has broken the first anniversary curse and given out a free 5-star during their first anniversary.
I just realized, did this guy not talk about Zhang Liao being given out for free for WuWa, but he's going to talk about this. The standard units that none of these are actually used in any team. None of these standard units are used in any team, except for maybe one of them, Lycon. Nobody else literally has any purpose.
They give out the same amount of gameplay and mail rewards otherwise, so again, incredibly similar to Honkai Star Rail. It's also very quick to get done with your dailies in Zenless Zone Zero, taking less than 10 minutes every single day, as well as every other piece of content that has to do with player maintenance, like events and such being very accessible. Where ZZZ and HSR start to really stray away from each other is endgame accessibility.
Wait, so is this guy not going to talk about ZZZ requiring you to sit down for about 7 business days to do all of its side quests? Where it's actually more tedious to do the side quests and events in ZZZ than any exploration in WuWa or even Genshin. It's literally harder to do ZZZ side quests than it is to do exploration in Genshin or WuWa. Wait, and we just skipped over that entire list of like fucking commission missions. Guys, I'll just show it to you. I mean, if we're saying that there's no soft pity in WuWa, I don't think we've probably played the game, especially when we're using somebody else's footage. And I think if we're saying that ZZZ's maintenance and keeping up with the free rewards is easy and no effort at all, I think we haven't played ZZZ either, because It is without a doubt. Guys, I'm about to show you something that's like the truth for most ZZZ players. Get ready for this, boys. Yeah, he also didn't mention you could buy sequence nodes from the shop. I understand that there's like a couple of things you can miss, no big deal, but no soft pity. No sequence nodes in the shop. And then when we say ZZZ has no maintenance and it's low effort, and then this is what... That's what the quest log looks like in ZZZ. Because you have a mix of needing to walk to just random places in the city. One stage combats, TVs, it's all here. It's all here, bro. It's all here. Nobody does these. This is how many events there are. This is how many dialogues and quests you gotta go through. Each of these are like 30 different dialogues, bro. Nobody does these. It's such a pain in the ass to keep up with this game as a free-to-play. You can't even skip any of these dialogues either. You have to read the dialogue of all of these quests. Brother, ZZZ's maintenance has to be the highest out of some of the highest out of all the Hoyo games.
We already know HSR's endgame situation is a shitfest cluster of power creep and HP inflation, while Zenless Zone Zero has very little of both.
Zenless Zone Zero has very little power creep and HP inflation? Are we on drugs? We have to be on drugs, right? There's no way you played the game and you can say there's no power creep or HP inflation after 2.0 in Miasma. And the fact that since version 1.4, the HP has inflated by 120%. Kaiser, don't you have your updated chart? Total HP since ZZZ 1.4, the start of the year, by the way. In 2.0, the HP was up 110% since the start of the year. In July, the HP was literally up 110%. And the only reason why these HP numbers went down in 2.1 is because the bosses both have miasma shields. And so they have like a fuck ton of built-in DR, and they actually take longer to fight than they did in 2.0. That is ZZZ's HP inflation since January. 110%. And then if it's lower, it's because they have gigantic fucking shields. What do you mean there's no HP inflation and power creep? In a game with Hoshimi Miyabi, we got to at least play these games and slightly keep up with their meta, right? Like, we have to at least slightly be keeping up with the game's metas. And, like, at least watch, like, a video or two about what's going on in the games if we're going to talk about power creep and HP inflation, if we're going to make, like, this sort of analysis, right? Because there's no way that we're just saying that HP inflation is not a thing in ZZZ.
Miyabi power crept Ellen once, sure, then Ellen was buffed in the first anniversary, and no other example of strong power creep happened since.
Astra Yao and Yi Xuan and Miasma and the Rupture class and the new support, Yazuha, and how she outperforms and throws Piper into the fucking grave.
There are still definitely top characters and bottom characters, like Jane being top and me being bottom. Like Miyabi and Yi Xuan at the top of every tier list, and Ellen still being at only T1. And even Jane being called one of the worst characters, you can still get pretty reliable clears with basically anyone, so power creep is completely not an issue in Zenless Zone Zero, and so is HP inflation.
This guy doesn't play the game. Yeah, I know. He doesn't play the game at all. I don't know how you're saying that statement. That power creep and HP inflation don't exist in ZZZ. I don't even know what we're doing here.
Overall, I would give Zenless Zone Zero's F2P friendliness a 7.5 out of 10. The Battle Cats is one of the best gacha games of all time, in my opinion. Some of the best challenging content available while also being pretty damn F2P friendly. Its gacha system may seem pretty daunting and bad at first, with legendary units or 6 stars having a 0.3% chance to drop without even a pity system, which is even worse than Dragon Ball Legends' Ultra units. But there are a few redeeming points, the first of which being a number of double rate events for both 5-star and 6-star units, as well as the ability to track your future pulls, meaning if you do it correctly, you will never lose. Also, even if you are never lucky enough to get a legendary unit, they're actually pretty mid most of the time, with so many uber rare units outshining them, and even then, uber rare units aren't needed in beating the game, since super rare, rare, and unlockable units are so damn good. Now this means that it's still harder for collectors, but that's such a small amount of Battle Cats' player base because of the type of game that it is, so for most F2P players it's a really good game. Especially because player maintenance in this game is
I don't care about Battle Cats. Move me on to the next fucking game.
The next game is Punishing Grey Raven.
I don't give a shit about Battle Cats, I'm sorry. I don't think anyone else cares either. I'm just gonna skip over to the next game.
Kuro Games' true passion project before Wuthering Waves. This game is incredibly F2P friendly, and first and foremost because of a great gacha system. Limited 5-star units drop at a rate of 1.5% with 60 pity and no 50-50. Weapons drop at a 4% chance and 30 pity with an 80-20 system. I don't know why they would not have a 50-50 for characters but then an 80-20 for weapons, but it's still an insane gacha system nonetheless.
Yeah, the 80-20 weapon on PGR is kinda, I don't even know why it's in there.
There are also pets, otherwise known inside the game as cubs, which are guaranteed a 20 pity. Endgame is mostly skill-based, just like Wuthering Waves, so being skilled enough is the bar. Power creep does exist in PGR, but it's very manageable. I think that's also the route they're going to go with Wuthering Waves later on. Basically, all units can clear content with enough skill, so it won't be an issue. Now, the devs are pretty generous, especially right now when the global version of PGR is trying to catch up with CN by updating twice, sometimes 3 times as fast, with the reported average amount of currency per patch being 7,500 black cards, which is around 30 pulls. When merged, that doubles and triples sometimes, but with the normal schedule, you can guarantee a 5-star once every 2 patches, not considering freebies. Anniversaries, collabs, and other special patches contain quite a lot of rewards as well. Many A rank and S rank units, or 4 and 5 stars, are also given out for free, and when it comes to player maintenance, you can expect to grind out for 30 to 45 minutes daily for maximum account optimization, which is definitely not the best, but people already do that in games like Wuthering Waves and Genshin. Games like HSR and ZZZ are much easier to maintain daily, so with very generous devs that give out a lot of freebies and rewards.
Did he say these other games are better to maintain daily?
Which is definitely not the best, but people already do that in games like Wuthering Waves and Genshin. Games like HSR and ZZZ are much easier to maintain daily, so
I feel like PGR, you just you log in and you get your dailies done in like 3 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what's going on in this video. I feel like there's just so many things in here where if you're somebody that plays any of these games that he's talking about, you'll hear what he's saying and you'll just be like, wait, what the fuck did he just say? Straight up, like I heard what he said for Wuthering Waves, Honkai Star Rail, ZZZ, and PGR. I play all of those games, or I played all of them very recently, and I'm just like, wait, what the fuck did he just say? Because PGR has like the fastest dailies I've ever seen. You literally get all of it done in like 2 to 3 minutes if you know what you're doing, and it's legitimately actually longer than these games. And we said we don't even know if WuWa has a soft pity. You just Google it, and you'll find out what it... You just Google it, and you would know that WuWa has a soft pity. It's like, it took more effort to write in the script that WuWa doesn't have a soft pity than it would to just Google it and see that it does. This is what I mean. It's just, this video is confusing. We put more effort into spreading misinformation that can be literally rectified and corrected in a single Google search. Like, it was harder to do what he did than just say what the truth is. Is this true? Do people actually put shit into ChatGPT and then just ask it to write video scripts for them? Like, is that legitimately something that people do nowadays? They put scripts into ChatGPT, or they get scripts from ChatGPT and then just regurgitate it in front of a mic. Brother, I'm just gonna be real here. The amount of sheer misinfo that I've seen in this video is like, guys. And like I said, I thought I was going to go into this with an open mind. Am I not just calling out the stuff that's just blatantly wrong? That's just blatantly incorrect? And that's just not true at all? And like, I've even talked about where they're lying in other games.
With very generous devs that give out a lot of freebies and rewards, endgame accessibility that will...
And then we're like half representing issues as well, because we stood there like glazing the shit out of like free characters in PGR and free characters in ZZZ, and then we just said fuck you to Zhang Liao. We just said fuck you, Zhang Liao. We're not going to mention you at all for WuWa, but we will talk about how there's a missing free 5-star on the anniversary. But we won't talk about Zhang Liao.
Relies on skill, where power keep is also very
and we won't talk about the dupes in WuWa shop either.
manageable, a very great gacha system and ratio with the amount of pulls you get per patch, with pretty easy player maintenance but dailies taking a tiny bit longer than some games. Punishing Grey Raven is going to get an 8.5 out of 10. If you're planning on playing it, play it now to capitalize upon the patch merging going on.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how much more of this video I feel like particularly listening to, but I know for certain that this has gotten quite a few views, and the issue is that I don't know what's going on with this creator, but they've decided to just blatantly not get 90% of like the full story or information about these games. It's like they're picking and choosing what to talk about and then horrifyingly misrepresenting actual facts that have been confirmed about all of the games. Yeah, we don't talk about WuWa's beginner banner. There's just so much stuff missing that I don't actually know what's even going on in here, to be honest. And I don't even know if anyone in the comment section even knows what's going on either, because this is just like, huh? This isn't even a scenario of, oh, he rated WuWa low, that's why we're being toxic right now. Oh, we're toxic positive Kurobots. It's, we're giving ratings while missing some of the most upfront information across all of these games. And so I just can't help but feel like, even for the non-WuWa games, what are we even doing here? And can you even take this rating and this video seriously? I do genuinely think this is full of a huge amount of misinformation. And the next time that this creator like makes content, I'm just gonna unsub. Unfortunately, I'm just gonna unsub. Like the next time a creator like this makes videos, they need to actually double check the information that they're putting into their script. Unless it's being produced by ChatGPT. Maybe they could ask ChatGPT to review their script as well to make sure that it's right. Because like, what even in here is correct? There seems to be more wrong than there is right. So yeah, I mean, that's gonna be that. I think that this was a good video for us to watch. Just to be able to get like a rundown of like the gullibility of the gacha community. And like the gullibility of like people when they're giving out opinions that don't particularly make sense. There's some stuff in here that's like good, but like for other ones, it's kind of like, what is this? I don't particularly feel like finishing this because I don't think I can trust this creator with the opinions that they're giving. Knowing firsthand that they're this wrong about the games that we know about, I can't trust their opinion on the games that I don't know about. So I don't think we'll be finishing this one. I know this might come off as like a little bit harsh or maybe like too critical, but it's a matter of like, if we're gonna be judging games like this, then like at least try to double check just try to double check the stuff that you're putting into this video and saying is fact. Because very little of that was actually done here. Let me know what you all think. Peace.